Other comments. One of the other issues I think is going to be fundamental in here in terms of identifying role is the difference between what was contact in the bill and what was said by the authors on the floor.
Well, this was the author,
No, I'm not-
author's letter to the file, I
Right.
believe.
I'm not talking
Okay.
about that. Because one of the issues that I'm concerned about, and that is the function and role we have to educate and advocate for taxpayers. As you know, right now, we do numerous seminars, each of us, across the state. EDD doesn't do them, FTB doesn't do them, BOE does them, and we invite then those agencies to come and participate. And so we basically train and help thousands of people each year who have to navigate through these challenges of a tough tax system here in the state of California.
They just asked me to do that.
So one of the issues that I'm concerned about, and that is I say, look at what was said. And let me just read some of the specific quotes that make sure we're all on the same page in regards to this. Assemblymember Ting, who authored the bill, said the 4 elected board members will remain. The Constitution duties to equalize property taxes and work with counties and county assessors will continue. They will also retain their staffing, and they will also be continuing to encourage to be taxpayer advocates. Later on, he also says in a statement later on, again, this is what you do when you're trying to get votes, right? You got a bill on the floor, right? You're trying to explain what the bill does, because you want to make sure everybody understands it. So that's how you speak on the floor, right? And just again to clarify, the 4 elected board members will continue to be there for taxpayers. They will again be taxpayer advocates. They can take meetings with constituents. And in fact, I think it frees up their ability to be a greater advocate.
Maybe.
That's pretty clear. Senator Roth, who presented the bill in the Senate. His comments were the BOE will continue to have district offices and staff and constituent issues. The BOE members will continue to be able to function as taxpayer advocates for their constituents with respect to not only the issues, but frankly, the board is involved with many other tax issues, I suppose, if the board members decide to want to do that. So again, I think it's pretty clear there, and let me read the final quote, all dealing with advocacy. Again, this is from Ting, again, the elected board of equalization stays, they get to be full-time taxpayer advocates. So I think that's important for us to shape then what we're going to be in the future. I get the idea, the concern in regards to the separation between being advocates and then being judges. I get the idea of being advocates versus the idea of how you deal with staff, but it's pretty clear through the quotes that the intention that got the votes on the legislature, the floor of the legislature, was to clarify that this board continues to be, and if maybe even can expands our role in regards to expectation, in regard to advocating for taxpayers. I say this in this context. Right now, I'm having to decide whether or not to cancel about 6 taxpayer seminars. That's about 1,500 taxpayers that aren't going to get educated. And education is real important. Let me tell you about a phone call I got 2 weeks ago from a taxpayer from Stockton. He sold live bait. He didn't know live bait was taxable. He bought a business, and the guy who bought it from said, oh, no, that's not taxable. And as a result of that, he just continued his little business and didn't charge tax. He was audited, has a $30,000 tax bill. Now, you can imagine somebody who sells live bait probably doesn't have $30,000 on him. So basically going to close his business. California tax laws are incredibly confusing and hard to understand. If there's not an opportunity for us to educate taxpayers, there's going to be a whole lot of little business people out there who are going to be confused and are going to lose their businesses. So I believe that's the intent of what the legislature saw when they talked about us being advocates for taxpayers, to protect taxpayers and educate taxpayers in this very confusing process. So I do think we're going to go through this process of trying to see who we are in this process. And I think at times it's going to be a bit stretching and challenging. But there's no doubt in my mind the legislature's intent was for us to be not taxpayers just for property tax. It's very clear in their language, it says for all taxes, and it also uses the word constituents, which is who we were elected by. So I think those are the kind of things that we're going to have to work through as we deal with this in the future and trying to identify and frame up who we are and what we are. And I think those are going to be the challenges over the next few months, trying to deal with that and interpret that.